Good evening all. Welcome back to All For United WFC. It's WSL weekend finally. It's been a long. I always find international breaks take so long if you're just like me and follow club football and things like that. But as you can see, I've assembled a panel. There's three of us again. I said to Keris after the show on Thursday, whenever we did Tuesday it was. I said I've not done a 3-person show for about a year, and now we've got 2 back-to-back in the same week. So, there we go. We shall see. Hello to everyone in the chat. Get your thoughts and your comments and all that kind of thing. There's obviously some talk already about the fullbacks. We're going to come on to that. We're going to talk about Skinner's comments about Guerrero because we can't have a preview without talking about Skinner's press conferences on a Friday. Obviously, a bit about West Ham and all things like that. So you can see, I'll actually come over to the debutants at the bottom there first. So it's not on screen, but Craig, if you want to introduce yourself, obviously, if people haven't seen you before, obviously you're mainly on TikTok, which is your @ is on there. Yeah, if you want to just introduce yourself, obviously you're our, I guess, neutral WSL rep for this evening. And yeah, where people may or may not have seen you on TikTok.
Yes, so have really been mainly on TikTok in terms of making roundup videos, basically with different WSL game weeks throughout the season. Started with a preview video and then being able to go with the WSL and then the cup competitions as well. So that's where I've probably been seen, and sort of then with different filters and ranking videos alongside them.
You've undersold your roundups there, because it's not just any old roundup. It's a full-on rap. It's a song that you produce to the WSL roundup. So I thought I'd throw that in there for people who just think Craig just sits there and goes, "Yeah, so this is what happened." It's a rap. It's what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So combining the hobby of music and football, to have 2 worlds colliding, I guess, in that sense, being able to do something a little bit different. Yes, doing that at the moment.
So if people haven't seen it, go and check out his TikTok. You see exactly what I mean, because that's pretty much what it is. Although you did a Lioness ranking the other day, and my shock when Tooney was at number 10 right from the off.
Oh, it's not gone down well. It's not gone down well at all.
That was quite something. Oh yeah, right. Let's go for it. Number 10, 2, straight in. I was like, oh my god, there's not even a pause. It was straight into number 10. Anyway, let's move on to the game itself. Keris, I'll start with yourself. How are you kind of feeling going into this one then? Because the league, I don't know, I feel really weird about this one because we're not really fighting for anything now. Obviously, top 3 is still mathematically possible. I mean, the league's mathematically possible. It's not going to happen. But like top 3 is still kind of there. But are you confident, excited? What are your thoughts going into this one?
It's one of them where, I think this is why we need an expansion in the WSL, right? Because there's actually 4, at the end of the day, 4 teams will actually get something out of the season. They'll either get relegation at the bottom or the top 3 will get a Champions League place. And it's not enough for the remaining 8 teams to not really have anything to compete for. So yeah, it's a frustrating situation to be kind of basically out of the title race. We're not out of the top 3, but it would take something pretty miraculous. So, I mean, yeah, sorry, that's a real downer to start on, but I'm looking forward to the game. I think West Ham have been interesting to watch lately. Obviously, the big one, them beating Arsenal was a bit of a shock. They brought in a lot of talent over January, a lot of kind of talent that we wouldn't necessarily be expecting to see going to West Ham either, with sort of Katrina Gorry, Christy Mewis, all these sort of really quality international players. So they're currently sitting 10th in the table, but we can't kind of write them off as an opposition. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the game. I think it'll be an interesting one, but I just hope that we find that kind of motivation of the players just find that motivation of having a bit more pride of playing for the club. Because now that there is that danger that because we don't have anything to fight for as such, then we lose our sort of energy a little bit.
I'm going to come back to that as a separate question, but that is my kind of, I guess, worry that I don't know. Like I said, it is still there. It's 7. What is it now? 7 points, isn't it? But Arsenal are not dropping in 3 games, and we're not going, winning every single game to down the other team, because that would mean beating City at the Etihad and then beating Chelsea on the last day. That's just not happening. So it's we're not making up that gap. So it's just, obviously, I want us to finish 4th. I do care about the results still. I still want us to actually win the games, but I'm a bit more I don't know. It's a tough one, but yeah, we'll get into that in just a second as a question. But Craig, for yourself, how are you viewing this game? Like, looking at United, looking at West Ham, obviously, I guess it's fair to say both teams maybe underperformed a little bit. Obviously, West Ham, to be fair, probably West Ham are about where I actually had West Ham going down. So in my estimations, they're doing better than I thought than they would be. But how are you kind of viewing this game? And do you think it is going to be closer than maybe some people are expecting it to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to say about, I mean, obviously looking at the 5-0 earlier in the season, it's very easy to sort of look back at that as a sort of starting point to think of this fixture. But then you look at, as Keris has alluded to, in terms of how West Ham have strengthened. I think they had Anouk Denton at right back, Abby Stringer in midfield. And you now look at Gori, you now look at Zadorsky as well coming in at centre back, Lisa Evans, Jessu back from injury as well. So I think they will be, they've successfully frustrated Arsenal with regards to, obviously managing to beat them. And I think they'll have a low block again as they did so successfully there. It's interesting, looking back at the game at Old Trafford last year, for example, when I think they played really well with, for that first half. Again, they sort of knew their identity. I think they were sort of more 4-4-2 out of possession. And then it took House Sissoko to chop a player down, and that then sort of opened the floodgates. So, West Ham on a pushover. And it will be a good game, but I still think United will have the strength and power to be able to overcome West Ham.
No, I certainly hope so. I think United have usually had a pretty good record. Obviously, away at West Ham has never been. It's not always been good. I always go back to the 21-22 season where we drew late, very, very late there. I think it was Fisk that might have scored that one. That was painful. That was one of the worst nights, and the drive home was horrendous as well. I think it took us about nearly 4.5 hours to get home. That was not fun on a Wednesday night. I think it was freezing as well. Just very quickly to run on your comment, where is Barry? I think this is a humbling thing. God, he's not been on 2 shows and already people are missing him. No, he is out tonight. He was supposed to be here, but no, he is out enjoying himself. He'll be back on Monday though, so don't you worry. And I don't even think that's possible. Great to get his haircut. That would be an achievement if he can get his haircut. No, don't you start. He'll be back, don't you worry, and hopefully Charlie as well on Monday night. Discussing a win. We'll get to that. Jayde, I'm with you. Normally I wouldn't be nervous to get same as me because there's nothing like I don't know. We need like a big positive win, but I don't think beating West Ham is that. It's not. This isn't going to be a catalyst for our season. If we all of a sudden beat West Ham and so on. So I'll kind of start with Keris. Craig just mentioned it there, obviously, and you mentioned it as well. The win against Arsenal. Do you think that will maybe play on United's minds a little bit, and Marc Skinner going into this one, thinking, usually we'd set up in a certain way. Obviously, mentioned the 5-0 win earlier on in the season, but since then, you mentioned January signings, and obviously they've already beaten a team that we've not managed to this season.
Yeah, I think you have to. It'll naturally be playing on people's minds, and as it should, because it shows that even though Arsenal obviously didn't bring their best to that game, it shows that West Ham have the quality to beat those teams, right? Because we had sort of, can't remember who it was where they were against, where Marc Skinner was basically saying like, oh, we're too inexperienced, we're too this, we're too that. And then it sort of shows actually, no, you can go and beat a team like that. It's not just down to experience. It's not just down to money. Like you can have that sort of result despite the sort of historic gap between clubs. So we do need to be like wary, but I think it, a one win against a top team doesn't mean that we need to be overly nervous. It just should be a bit of a wake up call. I think that we need to be aware of their sort of like attacking power. They've been better in front of goal since the restart, since bringing in those new signings. They've looked a little bit more creative, a little bit more kind of impactful, I would say. But I don't think that overall we have far more kind of goal scoring firepower than them. My concern is just, as a lot of people have already been asking about in the comments, just making sure that we line up a decent defence where everyone actually knows what they're doing.
I may as well come back. In fact, we'll move on to that in terms of obviously the back line. We know obviously it's very unlikely that Jayde is going to be available for this one as well. Craig, looking at it from the outside, and then Keris will come back to you on this question. In terms of what do you think United should do in terms of the back line? Because we saw Gemma Evans go there, and she slotted in at left back, had an awful time at the Emirates, and we saw Leah Golden come on at half time. I don't think fans are particularly happy with Evans at left back. The only defenders we've got it's going to be Evans, Mannion potentially, Millie Turner, May Letizia, and Hannah Blundell. So you got 5 into 4. What would you kind of be looking at, or do you think United should do to maximise it? Because West Ham can score, and United have got to be on their A game, so to speak, in terms of defensively. So I've got no issue. I don't think going forward, but that defence worries me. We've seen it in the last few weeks with players out of position. So what do you think? What would you like Marc Skinner to do? Do you think?
It is such a tough one, really, as you say, with Gemma Evans. As I said, not having performed particularly well recently. I mean, I think also it's making sure that they're able to adapt during the game. I think sort of go back to that Arsenal West Ham game in terms of, I think something that Arsenal lacked was actually having a plan B. I mean, you can obviously look at some of the substitutions they made, but in terms of actually responding to what West Ham do and seeing what if it ends up having to be changing too. I mean, I know Marc Skinner sort of loves a 4-3-3, but in terms of if it has to incorporate wing backs or whatever it might end up being, to be able to counteract what West Ham do, I think it's being able to be adaptable during the game and seeing what does work and doesn't, and being able to adapt during those 90 minutes.
I mean, Keris, from a fullback point of view, obviously, James is saying keep Blundell at left back. Now, Jay put this right at the start, talking about May Letizia at right back, Hannah at left back, and obviously we've got the 3 centre backs to choose from. Highlands also then followed that in saying we saw May at right back for England, which we did. Do you think that's maybe going to... I don't know with Marc Skinner. I've given up trying to work out what he's thinking at the time. But do you think that's maybe a factor that, we've seen it now for England? And Sarina Wiegman clearly sees May Letizia as a right back rather than a centre back. And maybe that kind of replacement for Lucy Bronze in the long term. That this is what he'll go for this weekend, because that experiment of Evans at left back has just not worked in any game that we've tried it.
No, I mean, Gemma Evans, maybe, she's more of a, I mean, I say a cup player. It's not like we rotate for the cup anyway, but I felt for her at the Emirates because, I was there and I was sat right behind her and she just couldn't handle it. And I think it's about just accepting when something is not working. So I would be inclined to agree with everyone in the comments and say Letizia right back, Blundell left back, and then 2 from 3 from our centre backs. We've got Turner, Mannion, and whoever else it is, can't even remember now. But yeah, I think Letizia was really positive at right back for England. Like, I'll admit when the England squad was named last summer and Letizia wasn't in it, and Sarina was saying, "Oh, it's because I see her as more of a right back." I was like, "What the hell is she on about?" And then this is why I'm not the England manager, right? Because she actually played pretty well in that position in those friendlies. I thought she had a lot more kind of like creativity to go forward with the ball. We saw her putting some crosses in. She's fast enough to get up and down the pitch. So I'm happy to see her in that role while we're short there, rather than have Evans at right back, left back even. That's what I'd go with.
Because it's only going to be for either it's this game and next at the absolute most. Jayde is very close to coming back. She'll be back in the next. I think City is probably maybe Bristol is the realistic touch. So she's coming back, Jayde, in the next kind of few weeks. So it's like it's not like this is a permanent thing. I don't know why. I don't know what I think he'll do. He'll stick with what we've done, and it'll be Evans at left back, Blundell at right, and Mayer and Millie at the middle, because it seems like he's given his reasons in a few weeks, but I think it was either before Arsenal or after it that he doesn't like moving Mayer out of that position because of the diagonal passes she can play from right centre back. But I think Barry said this on the show last week. You're only moving her one position to the right. She can still play that diagonal from right back. It's just a bit further. I don't know. I mean, John's asked the question. I think someone else put this earlier on about a back. I think it might have been someone put it earlier on, talking about maybe a back three, and that's something I've potentially floated. You know, whether you have, I'm trying to think who GM is now. Am I missing something? Mannion, Turner, and who's GM? Has my mind completely gone?
This is really embarrassing because I'm drawing a complete blank as well. John, help us out.
Unless it's Evans he's on about and it's a typo.
Yeah, I mean that would make more sense. Right, okay. Yeah. I thought we were about to be absolutely embarrassed there.
I know, I was thinking there's no squad GM. I mean, yeah, there we go. We'll call it that from now on. But that's potentially an option, whether we go three at the back and, you know, that's your three, because they are all centre-backs. Then you go Mayer but you'd still be putting Mayer at right back as a wing back. So you're still putting Mayer semi out of position. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. But I agree with that comment. I think he's pretty set. This is what he wants. You know, I joked about it, but then he said it in a press conference. Like, oh my God, he actually does think that way. That to him, it's like the least number of positions he can move. So it's like for him, Evans going at left back, Blundell to right. That's only two changes. One in at left, then moving the left to the right. Whereas if he moves Mayer to right, that's then Millie moving across, Evans coming into the left side. That's three changes, which sounds ridiculous. It shouldn't be done like that, but that's genuinely how I think
it's quite patronising to the players to suggest that they couldn't deal with that level of change. You know, like that they're professional footballers. I find it a bit ridiculous.
Well, so whatever he does, I don't know. Like I said, I think it'll be what we've seen, but who knows? I mean, Craig, do you know from a West Ham point of view? Obviously, I don't know how much you've seen of West Ham this season. In terms of who are we going to be, or who are United going to be up against? You know, wingers wise from West Ham.
I mean, I think it would probably be Zoo and Asai would probably be my best guess. I think. I mean, they don't seem to change their team much either. To be quite frank with it. So yeah, probably Ueki through the centre, and then Zoo and Asai on the wings. And the thing is with the wing backs, you then got potential overloads in wide areas with Kirsty Smith and Risa Shimizu as well, occupying those wide areas.
There's always an ex-United in there somewhere, isn't there? Every team we play, I'm like, oh, there's an ex-United at that team. There's an ex-United there. Obviously, Kirsty Smith, a name that not heard from. Well, we could do with her right now. We need fullbacks. Do you reckon they could loan her back to us for just a couple of games and she could slot in? Could do with her there. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, formations are not rigid. You know, I think when people throw out formations like 4-2-3-1, 4-2-3, 4-4-2, and everything else, that's usually just how you set up defensively. You know, you have your defensive shit. You don't attack in a 4-4-2-3-1. Is what I'm trying to say. Your positions aren't rigid to that formation and way of playing. But in terms of lineup wise, it's very much that.
I think the issue is with Marc Skinner. It's not. I think he sees every player's role. He sees every player as having a very set role and isn't really willing to kind of flex away from that. Like we saw it with he eventually kind of worked it out with having Jayce on the right, even though that wasn't maybe where he originally envisaged using her. But we've seen it. I mean, to use the example of Grace Clinton, we obviously talked a lot about her on the last show. You know, she went to Spurs and has been sort of trialled in a couple of different midfield roles, and for England played in that number 8 role, which isn't really her usual position. It's just a bit of that, like, just trusting the players to try a different role. Just because someone comes to you and says, all right, I'm a centre-back, I usually play on the right, like the right side of the centre-back pairing, that does not mean that's the only place they can play. Like, players have more flexibility than that, but I don't think he necessarily sees it that way. He sees it as, okay, this is my left back, my left centre back, my right centre back, my right back, and then this is my backup for each of those positions. And there's just not a lot of flexibility. I think that's the problem that I have.
Yeah, no, it's hard to. I may as well come on. It's kind of flowing nicely into the next kind of. I wasn't going to ask this yet, but while we're on that conversation, obviously he did make a a comment. I don't know what the actual question was. I think the question was actually about Guerrero, which is why he answered it in terms of her. I'm not going to read the full quote out. You can find it if you go to Chris Brooks, the journalist's Twitter page. It's on there. You'll find it because it's got about 5 likes and about 100 quotes. So it's easy to find. And that's always a bad sign when you've got more quotes than likes on a post. So he got asked about her, and the bit I want to highlight, he said towards the end, where in Spain it's positional based, ours is positional based, but it's also decision making processes in there. I think it's just her getting used to everyone else. I often say this, it's sometimes not about the individual. So it's not about her not getting it, it's about working those partnerships together. Now, oh dear, right. Where do I start with that? So, Craig, I'll come to you. And so, obviously, Guerrero, we know she went out injured for a bit, so obviously that can't be helped as well. But for me, there seems to be a pattern with every player. Vilda got it, Lisa's had it, Guerrero's got it, Miyazawa had it. He said something about her at the start of the season. Every single player he seems to say, especially in midfield, seems to say this about them adapting to the league, which I get. It happens. You do need to adapt to, in certain areas. But we see so many players come from abroad, go to other teams, they're straight in, hit the ground running, and so on. What's your kind of thoughts on what he said there? I mean, because we're talking about a World Cup winner here, someone who's playing, play at the highest level and these kind of things that can't get into our team. And do you think it is a case of like what Kara said? He's almost like got his 11 and got his specific players, and he just will not budge from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you alluded to it in that sense, in terms of, I've completely lost my train of thought. In terms of, you said in terms of players coming from abroad and being able to come and hit the ground running, but it seems to be a problem at United and only United, and you then wonder how much of that is coincidence and how much of that is due to other things going on. Definitely does make you wonder exactly what is going on. But as you say, of course, you're gonna be defending your players. You're not gonna outwardly criticize them, of course, if they are coming from foreign leagues. But I still, as you said, there's been patterns. With it being, this isn't the first instance of it, and it probably won't be the last.
No, I mean, there's a lot of comments. Obviously, I knew that as soon as I brought this up, this would garner the conversation in the chat. But I mean, highlights saying there, Kirsten talking about, let's be blunt, he's made excuses. He doesn't want to drop certain players. That's potentially a factor in it, because we have seen certain players that just don't seem to be, they never seem to get dropped in that one. Paul's referenced another quote that he said, talking about in the WSL, every team plays differently, and Irene's not used to that. I mean, what's your thoughts on the overall comment for a start? And also just, can Guerrero find a way into this team? Because if I'm her, I'm looking at it going, well, why have I joined? Because she's not playing. When she has played, she looked all right. As we said in the last show, with Grace potentially coming back as well, that's another midfield position, because Grace has surely got to be further up the pecking order from what we've seen of her. But why is it there's always, they've got to adapt, they've got to learn the way, yet, as this comment says, Ramirez literally came in to Chelsea straight away, hit the ground running, scored a couple of goals already.
I think it's what I would say. It's the manager's job, right, to get a player to adapt to a playing style. And first of all, it sounds slightly harsh to say, I'm not sure what style it is that these players are meant to be adapting to. Like, there is nothing at the moment in our team. There is nothing like that specific. We don't carry those like specific threats or distinctive playing style that is making us like a super difficult team to come into, right? We're playing some decent football, but it's nothing that that a player who's played at a top flight level will not have played before. And if you're arguing that it's about playing against a different variety of teams, first of all, that argument's rubbish. Second of all, even if you were if the argument is that you've got to wait to play against every team in the WSL and watch them before you can play against them, it's just a ridiculous argument. You're then basically saying after you sign, you need several months before you can start playing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And as people have said in the comments, like, it's not a super like consistent way of approaching it as well. You know, we've seen him starting Jayce, and we can see from other clubs like Chelsea, players need to adapt, but that doesn't need to take months. You know, you can, if you've got the right environment and the right coaching staff and players actually feel wanted, they will want to adapt quicker. Whereas I think if I'm Guerrero right now, I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking, well, I'm not getting played and I think I've adapted. People like Lisa Nelson, for instance, were getting told they hadn't adapted and then came into the starting lineup and were fine. So what is the point in me even trying? It's just going to be a completely kind of arbitrary decision. I think not only does what he said this morning not really make sense, but it also sort of will undermine players wanting to join us and wanting to stay with us.
It's like you said, it's almost like an induction process, isn't it? It's like they come in and they've got to just wait and watch, which just begs the question. This comment is bang on. We had a player that waited, you know, had her moments, and she was forced out. And I don't say that lightly. She was quite literally forced out. So I don't know why, you know, that was a swap deal for the very player that we're talking about. So you've got a player there that had the adaptation process or whatever you want to call it, that was then forced out for a player that then had to apparently learn. I don't understand. And to me, this might come across a bit strong, but I think it's a bit of an insult to other leagues to say that the WSL is like the only league that plays differently, because I don't know whether anyone watches any other leagues, but I can tell you now the German and Italian leagues definitely play different across the teams. It's not all one way of playing. So, yeah, to me, it's I don't know. It might be a case, I think someone's alluded to this in the comments, that maybe he says these things to deflect on other issues. And now we're sat here talking about this rather than talking about potentially something else that, you know, is coming up or other things. That might be, you know, the typical politician's way of dealing with it. Deflects onto something else when you're not when you don't want the question being asked. Obviously,
someone's raised a really sorry, Connor, to jump in, but someone's raised a really, really good point in the comments as well, which is that I didn't mention when I was talking about like people not wanting to then join, is that Guerrero's also surely going to be losing her place in the Spanish team, because you've highlighted it now, because people are getting, like we've seen it happen with Roebuck, for instance, at City. Obviously slightly different for a goalkeeper, but you know, Wiegman was saying, I simply cannot put her in the squad because she's not been playing. And that's not necessarily a reflection on her quality. It's just that she's not been playing and someone that's better than her has come in. And in the case of someone like Guerrero, it's not even necessarily that someone else is having an absolutely like blazing, amazing season ahead of her. It's just that she's not playing, and that will put people off joining if they're thinking, well, I'm not going to get any minutes, so I'm not going to be playing for club. I'm not going to be playing for country. We were talking on the show on Tuesday about us being a stepping stone club. We're not actually going to be that if players don't think they're going to come here and actually play top flight football.
It's an interesting point. And I think it's, you know, I backed it last season in terms of the not rotate, because you're winning each week. You know, last season was amazing. We were winning each week. We were fighting for the title. So I understood then his reasons for not changing it, because it wasn't worth the risk when you're fighting for the title with Chelsea, knowing that Chelsea are probably going to win every game anyway, to change that. So I kind of understood it. But I tweeted it earlier. Like, I think, Eric, you said this in your first bit, that it's on the management, and not just the management, the coaches as well. Like, if the same problem keeps happening, you need to start looking at yourself. Because why does it keep happening with so many other players? Start looking at yourself and the coach. What are you actually doing to develop them as players? On that one, Memphis makes a good point. They're talking about maybe he didn't want half of these. That's something we've raised on a couple of occasions. Who is actually buying the players? No idea. And yeah, exactly, Paul. Like, surely they've done their homework and gone, yeah, they suit my style, rather than, right, we'll get them, but then, you know, we'll wait and see what happens, you know, to them. Will they adapt or not? You do that before you sign them. You don't wait until you... Anyway, I don't know. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but it's a bit of a shame.
I really hope Marc Skinner doesn't watch these, because if I am going to do this football journalism thing, then whenever he sees me, he's going to absolutely hate me. So I like to think I do it in a considered and justified way, but I do criticise him quite a lot at the moment.
I'll try. Yeah, no, I think I've lost my any interview access that I potentially would have had as well. But I'm not saying I know I wouldn't come on here and say something I know that isn't true or that is not my opinion as well. So I don't know. That kind of leads me on to a question I was going to ask actually, and Craig, I'll come back to you on this in terms of with the top three now, Adam, and this kind of ties into the Guerrero conversation. Obviously, with the top three looking very unlikely now, do you think? Well, not do you think? Would you like to see, because it's not going to happen, Marc Skinner potentially use these as like, not as training games, but almost try something a little bit different? Maybe bring in a Guerrero and pair her with like a Lisa Nelson in the midfield. Try something different up front with maybe Mallard down the middle and Paris off the right, something like that. Do you think there's maybe that element that we're potentially looking at some of these league games now and going, that's the time where we can try some of these things, because we've got nothing really to fight for apart from fourth place at the minute.
Yeah, I completely do agree with that, and especially when you're then looking long term with regards to player development in terms of, potentially even. I mean, obviously, who knows what Mary Earps is going to do over the summer, but potentially look about goalkeeper rotation as well. But yeah, really try and develop the team and being able to, as you say, be able to use this as a little bit of freedom. Whether we will or not, obviously, is a different story. I think Zelen will still be in that midfield until she's 40 plus at this point. So you never know exactly what he is going to do. But I think as you say, in terms of then when you're then looking at players coming back with regards to what they're thinking, obviously alluding to Grace Clinton when she does come back. If then youth is going to be given a chance and you are actually going to be rewarded for playing well or even training well, whatever it might be, being able to have players be thinking that they've actually got a chance to play in the starting 11 and be able to fight for their place. Whereas I think if you're going to keep the same 11 each week, it then desensitizes. You then just don't have that motivation to go for it. If you know that you could train the best you've ever trained and still not be able to get any minutes in.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I think I want him to, because, like I said, I think I said to you, Gritty, I'm never going to stop going. I'll be there at West Ham and Brighton and all these games, despite the fact of being 3-4 hours away from my house half the time. But it's like I'll still go to these games and so on. But I want something that's going to excite me a little bit, because there's no point in us playing the same team that's got us in this position all the way to this point of the season, because it's like we're just adding points to a board to make sure we finish fourth, rather than it doesn't get us anything. We don't get a trophy for fourth or anything else. Whereas the FA Cup game, obviously a little bit different, because we're actually fighting for something. Keris, same kind of question to yourself in terms of, again, do you think we should be trying something new? And also I'll throw in the Jayce question, because obviously she is not going to be available. And that worries me, because we know statistically she is the best ball carrier in terms of progressive carries and take-ons and all those kinds of things in the league. I worry without her, who is going to be doing that? Because we don't seem to have anyone else that can drive the ball forward. Last season, Honor did it a lot from the right-hand side. What would you do in terms of her position? What would your front three be to kind of combat that and find the goals, really?
I don't know. I would possibly be looking, I think, in terms of a front three. I know Paris has been really strong up top, but I would probably be going Mallard up top, Paris on the right, and Garcia on the left to start with, because I think that Mallard is a very strong out-and-out 9, even if she's not our first choice. And I don't think that anyone else would be better on that right wing than Paris. I don't know if that makes any kind of sense. But I think for me, Galton is very much a left winger. Rachel Williams, I think, is very good to be like an impact player coming on. So I would say, Garcia is also very good. Someone just pointed out in the comments at being that kind of carrier of the ball as well. We've got Lisa Nelson is very good at like taking the ball forward and kind of driving play. So I'm not necessarily. Jayce obviously had a massive impact for us in terms of like progressive carries and stuff, but we do have other players that can do that. I'll miss watching her play this weekend, because she's so great to watch. You were talking before about you'll keep watching the games. It's nice to see something exciting. she is one of the genuine like joys of watching our team. I think she's just such a fantastic player for the fans. But yeah, for me, I'm not too worried about having her missing for one game, because the area that we do have a lot of depth and a lot of options is that front three. It would be good to see Mallard get some game time as well. So I'm trying to view it as a positive, rather than a kind of, oh no, we're missing her. But yeah, that would probably be what I'd go for. And on the more general point, in terms of like changing things up a bit, I think that, like you say, we've got nothing to lose almost. Like, yes, technically we're still in it for top three, but realistically it's very unlikely. So, you know, let's try to actually work out what's going wrong, try some different options, almost treat them like, you know, people talk about using cup games to rotate. Cup games are actually the games at the moment, because it's our last chance of silverware, where we want to be playing it quite safe and putting our best 11 out. It's against these sort of lower table sides, though we shouldn't underestimate them in the league, that we want to be rotating and trying other things, I think.
I'm trying to remember back to the start of the season, because you referenced it secondly. I'm just having a look who we started on the right, because as you said, Jayse was down the middle when we started the season. I can't remember who was off the right. So Villa. So it was Garcia in game 1. It was Garcia in game 2. So it was Garcia that played on the right for the first couple of games. So maybe
I just think she's so much better down the left, though. Like I know Galton is obviously a good left winger, but I think Garcia is much stronger than her. And I think Paris, even though it's not her strongest role, she can play in that role on the right, and then have Mallard as that, get her some minutes in her role as an out and out kind of goal scorer would be my thought.
I mean, I agree with you. That's exactly what I would go for. I would go for that and James obviously agrees with that front three. I mean, Craig, would you kind of agree with that? Would you be looking at kind of a front three of Garcia, Mallard, and Paris as kind of as an attacking outlet?
Yes, I think I do completely agree with what Keris has said. I think that probably is the strongest form, being able to play each player in their preferred positions. We know that Marc Skinner likes that. So, but yes, I think that front three is probably the best for this West Ham game.
Yeah, I hope it is that, because I don't know. It might be something else. It might be Galton, Paris, and Mallard, and maybe Mallard starts at right back. Who knows? Maybe we'll try something completely wild in this one. I really don't know, but it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I can see Galton potentially coming back in, and it being a Galton, Paris, Garcia kind of trio. I just want to see Mallard, because I want to see her back playing, because she started the season so well for us, and obviously got injured and has kind of been in and out of the side. And I wanted to have a really strong last few games, mainly so the board look at it and go, yeah, let's buy her on a permanent. Because at the moment, you look at her record and think it's not great, but there is an elite forward in there, so we need to get her on board. Talking about the best ball carriers in the league, we've got 3 of them. Well, I said we've got 2 of them. One of them we technically have, but she might not be here next season anyway. So we'll see what happens with Grace, but hopefully we keep hold of her and put her into the middle. Just a very quick fire question to you both then, and I don't usually ask this on these kinds of previews, but I'm going to do it anyway, because why not? I've not asked this for a while actually. Keris, it's going to be harder, I think, from us. I genuinely don't even have an answer, but if you could swap one player from West Ham into United, who are you moving across? Craig, you can do it from both if you want. You can do it from United to West Ham and West Ham to United.
Right, let me actually pull up. Do me a favour and let me actually pull up their lineup first.
I think I would go for Asai, to be honest.
Yeah,
not that we need another forward, but
well,
she's my favourite West Ham player. So
Sissoko as well, to be fair, currently. I mean, she's not necessarily the out and out like full back always. I don't know. I'll confess to not being a West Ham expert, but we are in need of a defender, and I think she's quality. So for this weekend specifically, probably Sissoko. But I don't know if Asai gets in ahead of our current front three.
I don't think any of their players get in. I don't think they start ahead. Well, Kirsty Smith probably does. I think if any of the West Ham fullbacks probably start. Just have a look now.
that's what I was going to then say. I was probably going to actually say Risa Shimizu for the right back, and then have Blundell back to left back if in that sort of conceptual world for this game. It's interesting. It's interesting with Kirsty Smith. I don't think. I mean, I haven't seen a little bit of her. I don't actually rate her 1v1 defending, and I think she can get very exposed in that. Whereas I think Risa Shimizu is more of a complete package, and I mean she plays well for Japan, and has been all right for West Ham this season. In terms of sort of switch the other way, I mean, I think either Nikita Paris or Mallard up top instead of Ueki probably would be, I guess, the largest improvement potentially for West Ham squad. I mean, as you say, that you could easily list 8 or 9 Man United players that would get into that lineup, but that's probably what I would go for.
Stapleton was another player I thought of West Ham because she's still pretty young, isn't she? Like 19 or something, like 18, 19. So
who did you say there? Sorry,
Jessie Stapleton.
Yes, yeah, and well, Jesu as well. I mean, she got player of the match in the Ireland game in midweek. So yes, they've got some young players coming through, which is just interesting to see how they do develop.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see on. Well, I don't think we'd ever buy from. We used to went through a period of just buying West Ham players, just one a season. Thomas and Ross and, and all these players over the years, just one at a time. We're like accumulating West Ham players, but we've not done that yet. I mean, that's not a bad shout, Mackenzie Arnold in, as our number 2 if Fallon's not going to play because Fallon needs to be number 1.
Mackenzie Arnold is probably responsible for one of my favourite football moments of all time for Australia in the World Cup. So this is a complete tangent, but I was in Australia for that World Cup. I was outside the stadium about to watch the England game. So they had the Matildas game on the big screens. And I've got the video of her in that penalty shootout. I was just in this crowd of like tens of thousands of Aussies. She's absolutely brilliant. Like, it was one of the most crazy atmospheres I've ever experienced. So I would love to see her.
Yeah, I was going to say that was quite a moment, wasn't
it? Yeah, the France penalty shootout, JJ.
Yeah, I don't think she'd accept being number 2, though. That's the thing. I don't think she wants to jeopardise her spot in the Matildas. I mean, she's only just really in the last sort of 12 months or so actually become the number 1. So I think she'd probably prioritise that ahead of the move up club-wise.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I know you're being serious saying you get Gory as a DM. I honestly could see it's the kind of signing, like from a marketing point of view, United would make, with Harper and so on, because the views and United are all about that, marketability. It's the kind of move I could see United doing. Short-term good. That's not going to happen, is it? But there we go. We'll see. I'll ask this question when we do Brighton in next week. We'll see what names come up on that one as well. I don't really know what else to ask in terms of the game because there's not too much, as we said, in terms of the game itself to preview, especially when we've already played them once. A player that we've not mentioned yet, though, obviously, when we're talking about the front line in particular, Kara, to come over to yourself, Rachel Williams. Now, I did see a tweet about her from the Barca WSL account just before we went live, actually. She is now 1 goal away from 50 in the WSL, which only 9 other players have achieved. So it's quite a difficult thing to achieve. You're looking at only 9 others have done it. And Williams could become the 10th this weekend if she gets that goal. Can you see her potentially coming on, getting it? We've seen her a lot this season, coming off the bench, getting these goals and so on. And just, I get just, if you want to just speak about her in general this season in terms of kind of in and out of the side and what she's achieved.
I mean, definitely. I think she's such an interesting player because, like, for me, it takes a very specific sort of mentality to play that kind of super sub role where you're content with no. I mean, she's probably, I think I'm right in saying she has scored more times than she's been in the starting 11 this season. Like, that's just, I think I'm right in saying that. I could be completely wrong. But, she almost always starts off the bench, and it is never, ever a surprise to see her come on and get a goal in the last 10 minutes. And I think to have that that resilience and that sort of winner's mentality to be able to come on and do that is just fantastic. Like, coming back to that, she is, right? Like, she's so great to watch. Her like commitment physically, like putting in the absolutely ridiculous kind of crunching tackles, sending people absolutely flying, and then getting a goal to cap it off. I think it really shouldn't be underestimated. I know she's out of contract at the end of the season. I think she's someone we should definitely be looking at keeping, as both for what she does on the pitch, but also as sort of that experienced head in the dressing room. And I think if she does come on Sunday, which I would bet on, whether we're losing or winning, to be fair, because if we're losing, we'll probably need her, and if we're winning, then we'll be comfortable. Then I'd put money on her getting that 50th goal.
She's definitely coming on. We could probably predict when she's coming on because Skinner's subs are very rigid, in terms of who comes on and when. So she's coming on the pitch around between the 60 and the 65th minute. We know that's happening. So we'll just see who it's for at the time. But yeah, I can see it. It's the kind of game I can see her getting a kind of goal in. On that one as well. Kevin also makes the point, obviously LF2 1 goal away from a 50 for the club as well. So there's a lot of things that could happen this weekend in terms of that. But Craig, if you just want to talk to us as well about Rachel Williams, I said 1 goal off 50. 50 doesn't sound loads when you talk about it like that in the WSL. It doesn't sound like you're not talking hundreds like you always hear like in the men's game and so on. But 50 in the WSL, I said the fact that only 9 other players have done it, in the history of the WSL, it would be quite a good feat, wouldn't it, to get into that bracket?
Absolutely, and it is difficult to, as you sort of alluded to, in terms of making comparisons between the two games, just due to the difference in season lengths and everything else in between with that. But no, as you said, you could almost play bingo in terms of trying to guess which minute it is that she does come on, and again, it just offers that different dimension, especially if things aren't quite going well, or West Ham are defending well and needing to get that winner. It's great to have that option on the bench to be able to just add that something different and add that goal scoring edge that she's proven so well this season.
No, for sure. I'd like to see it again. It could be quite just add a bit of excitement, as I said earlier, to the game and add something to it. And yeah, I would 100% keep her as well, just to keep her on maybe as a coach as well. Just keep it in and around the team, I think, on that one. Right, we are a bit strapped for time this evening for various different reasons. So I'll come to score predictions and obviously a few shout-outs at the end as well. What are we saying score predictions-wise? And I've just done a video on this on my TikTok, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I'm still a bit worried that we're not even going to get the win. So that's an open question to either of you that want to jump in first. So if you want to throw a score out there, and you can name scores as well if you want.
I am saying 3-1 to us. I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet, but I do think we're going to win. I'm going to be slightly more optimistic than you, Connor. I'm going to say 3-1 United. Rachel Williams goal, Tooney goal. There you go.
And well, yeah, I'm gonna. Well, let's go poetic 2-1. Rachel Williams getting the winner. That's what I'm going for.
I'd love that, as long as it's down our end, because obviously we're in the other end this week. This weekend we're usually in the seated bit. We're actually in the standing bit behind the other goal this week, so that'll be fun as well. A lot of 2-1. That's I'm going with a 2-1 as well. I think so. I don't know. We might turn up and win 5-1, and then all the fans will get like NT saying, we'll get all excited like we've won a big game, and then I don't know. We've got Brighton, Bristol, then the derby at the Etihad. So I don't know. Sunday's got the potential to be very good or very poor, because at the same time as this game's going on, the men's play in the Manchester derby at the Etihad. So we've got 2 games to be keeping an eye on if you support both Manchester senior teams. I do not want to be driving home from West Ham if we've lost there, and also listening to the probably battering we're going to get at the Etihad as well. Who knows? We can hope. If you're not already, go and follow the All for United men's channel. They'll be doing the preview for the City game tomorrow. I'll come to each of you then if you want to shout out your stuff. Obviously, Craig, your TikTok is in your... I was going to say bio. It's not a bio. What is it? Like a tag? I've been doing this for 3.5 years. I still don't know what to call it. We'll go with that.
I don't know. That still doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. But yes, so heavily on TikTok, Instagram as well. But it's Cat Music for the WSL review, gaming reviews.
Indeed. Make sure you go and check it out because he's going to be rapping about how United have won next week. I want there to be a line in there about Williams and a 50th goal now. See if you can mix that.
If it happens, it will be in there. Don't you worry.
There we go. Look forward to seeing that one. And just very quickly on your question before I come to you, Karen, is it? I would say I would want that to happen. It's just not going to. I don't think anything's going to happen between now and the end of the season. There's not really much point. There's only 8 games at the most. How many games have we got left in the league? This is game week 15. It's a 7 plus maybe 2 more in the cup. 9 games left. There's no point. We may as well just wait until the end of the season now and let him go. But I would be calling for that on Monday's show if we do lose. Keris, is there anything you want to shout out with your on? Obviously, I know you're on Tuesday as well. If you want to give your handles and your podcast and all that, shout out.
Yeah, no, we did my Twitter handles in the little name tag thing. I still have my She's Out of Your League podcast with my mate Angel, which we recorded a new episode on. I can't even remember when it was. It's been such a long week, but that's out now. And I write for From the Spot. And I'm just sort of generally on Twitter. You can follow me to hear about United and also about rats in my house and all this sort of thing, if that's the sort of thing you're interested in.
I hope I don't hope, but I hope you're on about like actual animals. not a different...
Oh yeah, no, there's a rat. No, not my housemates. I love them to bits. Yeah, no, there is a rat.
Just checking. Make sure you go in and it's really throwing me off. I can't believe that's the first thing I thought of. Anyway, make sure you go following these two. We'll be back on Monday at 7:00. I can't stop laughing now. We'll be back on Monday, 7:00, as you guys know. Follow the TikTok and the Instagram at All for United WFC. If you're in the Predictions League, obviously make sure you send your scores across by tomorrow. Like the video, subscribe if you're new around here, and enjoy the weekend. The WSL's back. United are hopefully going to win, and we'll be happy come Monday. So have a good one. We'll see you guys in the next one.